Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are taking a journey back to the turn of the 20th century, brushing off the dry sand and really examining the true architecture of modern fantasy for children.
We really are.
We are diving deep into the world of Edith Nesbit, that's 1858 to 1924. And she was this pivotal figure who, you could say, practically defined the golden age of children's literature in the English-speaking world.
Absolutely. A giant of the genre.
And Nesbit wasn't just, telling charming stories. She was conducting these really profound thought experiments. We're focusing primarily on two of her most famous and, I think, most enduringly relevant works, Five Children and the Enchanted Castle.
Two absolute classics.
And these stories, they don't just feature magic. They functionally define magic not as, a reward for being good, but as a severe, complicated, and often really humiliating test of character, logic, and self-knowledge.
It's punitive, almost.
Our mission today is to crack Nesbit's core paradox. Why, in her universe, does receiving exactly what you wish for almost inevitably lead to disaster?
Right. What's the catch?
What is the catch? And what's the fundamental, maybe philosophical difference between the chaotic, fleeting magic granted by a sand fairy, this power of instant transformation, and the deeper, meaningful, sort of structural enchantment you find dwelling within an old, ruinous castle?
And to understand Nesbit's really revolutionary approach, you have to look at the ground beneath her feet.
Okay.
She was working during a moment of profound societal transformation. The rise of modern industrial society had unintentionally laid two massive historical and economic preconditions for this literary boom to even happen.
So it wasn't just a creative shift, it was a social one.
Exactly. First, industrialization meant greater economic stability and the rise of a robust middle class.
The population that could read.
And crucially, had the time and the money to purchase books specifically for their children. Secondly, and this is maybe more important, the strict division between the home and the factory or the office created the concept of childhood as we now understand it.
Right. That separation is absolutely vital. I mean, before the mid-19th century, a child's experience often blended seamlessly into the adult world of, labor or moral instruction.
Yes, exactly. There were books for children, but they were often heavily didactic. Be good or else.
But there wasn't a dedicated genre focusing on imaginative play and character development in this sort of protected space.
That's the key. This new condition established childhood as a separate, imaginative, and protected period, walled off from immediate economic productivity.
And that created a demand.
A massive appetite for specialized children's fiction, which began to flourish spectacularly right around the 1850s and 60s. And that's the movement Nesbit absolutely mastered. She wrote for a generation of children who were, for the first time, really allowed to be merely children.
So when Nesbit started publishing, she was engaging with, and let's be honest, often subtly mocking several new genres that were already becoming, established tropes in middle-class nurseries and schoolrooms.
Right, she was in conversation with them.
This new literature came in a huge variety of forms, but three really stand out as critical precursors to her work.
Okay.
The first, and maybe the most pervasive in the English-speaking world, was the boy's adventure tale.
Ah, yes.
This genre traces its DNA way back to Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe in 1719. It's all about survival, resourcefulness, self-made heroism in distant lands.
And by the time Nesbit was writing, it had morphed into a very specific kind of literature, often highly moralistic and patriotic.
Who are we talking about here?
We see pioneers like Captain Frederick Marryat, who wrote these detailed sea adventures, R.M. Ballantyne, famous for The Coral Island, and Mayne Reid. They established the template. A young, usually privileged male hero goes to a remote location and triumphs over nature or savagery or pirates.
And towering above them all, literally by volume, was G.A. Henty.
Oh, Henty.
This man was truly the boy's own historian. He wrote over 100 novels, usually featuring a plucky young Englishman inserted into a real historical conflict, the Napoleonic Wars or the colonization of India.
And always behaving with impeccable Victorian virtue, always.
Henty's influence was just staggering. He solidified this idea of the fearless, jingoistic, resourceful boy hero. But Nesbit, the clever satirist she was, took aim at this very template.
She parodies Henty directly in Five Children in It.
She does. The children, particularly Cyril and Robert, they often try to adopt Henty's stiff upper lip attitude, planning their magic escapades like military campaigns.
But unlike Henty's heroes, Nesbit's children are immediately undone by reality.
Yes.
They try to be resourceful, but their plans are always flawed because they lack real-world experience and foresight.
They are essentially Henty heroes dropped into a world where magic exists, but physics and, social conventions still apply.
It's a brilliant subversion. It shows how commonplace and easily recognizable his tropes had become, even to her young readers.
Okay, so alongside the adventure tale, you had this parallel development.
The family story.
The family story.
Yeah.
Which focused less on global adventure and more on domestic life, morality, relational dynamics, and it was primarily associated with women writers.
Right. You're thinking of figures like Charlotte Young, who was focused on religious duty and family management, Juliana Horatia Ewing, and Mary Louisa Molesworth. She was particularly good at writing about those subtle internal conflicts.
And of course, across the Atlantic, Louisa May Alcott's Little Women in 1868.
The definitive masterpiece.
It just anchored that whole tradition of presenting realistic, often complex, domestic, and emotional family dynamics to a young audience.
And that grounding in reality is so critical. That tradition of domestic realism, of capturing the squabbles, negotiations, the internal life of a middle-class family that paved the way directly for Nesbit's own non-magical but wildly popular works like The Story of the Treasure Seekers from 1899.
In that book, they're just ordinary kids.
Just ordinary children trying to navigate ordinary life, but with great personality.
But the real innovation, where Nesbit truly staked her claim, was blending these two worlds.
Yes.
She took the realism of the family story, the petty fights, the hunger, the recognizable settings, and injected the absolute chaos of fantasy, creating the cross-generational fantasy novel.
Fantasy wasn't new, of course. It existed primarily in the popular newly translated fairy tales. You think of the Brothers Grimm, translated in the 1820s, and Hans Christian Andersen, whose works reached English in the 1840s.
But those were stories of archetypes and morality tales.
Exactly. Nesbit took that foundational archetypal magic and placed it directly into the hyper-real, modern, and mundane setting of the middle-class family story.
And her children, Cyril, Anthea, Robert, Jane, and the Lamb, they're the perfect conduit for this.
They are. They aren't princes or peasants. They are ordinary, frequently bored children who discover that magic is both undeniably real and profoundly inconvenient for anyone attempting to maintain a normal schedule.
It's that clash. They attempt to apply the logic of the schoolroom to the chaos of the supernatural.
And that cognitive dissonance is where all the brilliant humor and disaster come from.
So let's get into the creature that sets this chaos in motion in 5 Children, and it.
The Psammead.
The children are staying in the country, father's away on business. Mother is visiting their grandmother. They're suffering from that particular brand of middle-class summertime boredom, The house feels dreadfully quiet and empty.
It's a beautifully grounding start. They are hot, sandy, and entirely rationalizing their endeavor.
Which is to dig a hole through the earth to Australia.
Of course. A perfectly logical thing to do. They are convinced that Australian children are walking upside down on the ceiling, and they're just gigging deep, driven by curiosity and a desire to escape the mundane.
And then, in the bottom of that dusty red hole, they find something that screams.
Not a noise of pain, though. It's described as a high, dry, husky voice.
Followed by Anthea's shock. I felt fur. They jump back, and there it is. The Psammead, the sand fairy.
We really have to pause and appreciate Nesbit's descriptive genius here. She deliberately rejects the dainty, winged Victorian notion of a fairy. This is not a pleasant creature.
Not at all.
She gives us this vivid, almost shocking inventory designed to unsettle the children and, the reader.
It is described explicitly as being unlike any fairy they had ever seen or heard of. It has eyes on long horns, like a snail's.
Which it can push in and out like the tubes of a telescope.
Yeah, it has bat ears, and its tubby body is shaped like a spider's, covered with thick, soft fur. Its legs and arms are furry too, and it has these monkey-like hands and feet. It's ancient, grumpy, and utterly grotesque.
And its temperament completely matches its appearance. When Jane, the youngest, asks if they should take it home, the creature turns its long, telescoping eyes on her and retorts with genuine malice, "Does she always talk nonsense, or is it only the rubbish on her head that makes her silly?"
It's a magnificent anti-Tinkerbell.
It really is.
And this creature's ancient history is key to the ironclad rules of its magic. The Psammead tells them it belongs to the Megatherium era, a prehistoric age, thousands of years ago.
And in that time, people wished for good, solid, everyday gifts.
Meaning what, exactly?
Yes, the wishes reflected purely physical, immediate, material needs. They wished for things to eat. They'd ask for a pterodactyl for breakfast, which the Psammead claims was very good grilled.
The grilled pterodactyl.
Or a megatherium, which was as big as an elephant, for a substantial feast. If they wanted fish, they asked for an ichthyosaurus, which was 20 to 40 feet long. It paints a picture of a world of gigantic material consumption.
They must have had an enormous waste problem with the leftovers.
Exactly. And that's what created the ancient law, which is brilliantly scientific in its explanation of fossils.
Oh, this is my favorite part.
These good, solid gifts had to turn to stone at sunset. This prevented the world from being completely buried in gargantuan, uneaten meals.
The Psammead says, with a touch of scientific pride, that this is why we find the stone bones of the megatherium and giant periwinkles, the size of tea trays, all over the place even now.
So the world's fossil record is essentially the result of ancient, poorly planned wishes.
That's just an amazing concept.
It connects deep time to the immediate present. But the problem for the children is that magic has evolved, mirroring the shift in human desire from material scarcity to abstract fulfillment.
Right.
The Psammead explains it with this world-weary sigh, autre temps, autre mars, other times, other customs. He complains that modern humans, the children, wish for high-flying, fanciful things.
Things like being beautiful as the day or having unlimited wealth.
Or being wanted by everybody.
And you can't exactly turn beauty into stone at sundown.
Precisely. If they wished for beauty and it petrified, the world would be covered in stone statues of gorgeous but inconveniently positioned people. So the modern rule dictates that abstract or fanciful wishes cannot be turned into stone.
So what happens to them?
Instead, they simply vanish entirely at sunset. This maintains balance and prevents the world from being filled with, petrified sentiment or unwanted piles of stone ideas.
The ultimate driving force of the entire narrative, though, it comes down to the creature's intractable personality and its rules.
The rules are everything.
The wishes cannot be annulled. Once spoken, they are done. And most importantly, the Psammead will not provide any guidance whatsoever. He tells them,
I've spent the whole of my waking hours in giving. But one thing I won't give, that's advice.
and that one line that defines the core paradox Nesbit is exploring. She equips these middle-class, well-meaning but utterly naive children with boundless, instantaneous creative power.
But denies them the two crucial ingredients necessary to manage that power successfully: foresight and the ability to reverse their inevitable mistakes.
So every resulting disaster is an internal critique of the children's own lack of perspective and planning. The wishes just expose them.
And if you track the children's interaction with the sand fairy, they follow this painfully predictable cycle: excitement, a rash wish, instant chaos, fear, and then finally relief when the sun sets.
Wiping the slate clean, but leaving them emotionally exhausted and usually hungry.
Yes. Cyril sums it up perfectly later in the book. He says, "We've had wings, and being beautiful as the day," that was pretty jolly beastly if you like, "and wealth and castles and that rotten gypsy business with the lamb, but we're no forwarder."
We're no forwarder, no further advanced. We haven't really got anything worth having for our wishes.
And that's the bottom line.
Let's dive into these specific failures, because they are so deeply insightful about the nature of desire. The first major failure, wish 1, beauty as the day.
This was Anthea's wish. It was hurried, impatient, because everyone was arguing over what to ask for.
And the Psammead swells up, lets out a long, grating sigh, and the magic takes hold.
The transformation is immediate and total, but it results in alienation, not happiness. They become superficially magnificent, but they're unrecognizable.
Robert is shocked to find he now looks like an Italian organ grinder with flowing black hair and this exotic look. And the girls, Jane and Anthea, are described as looking like silly Christmas cards.
Perfect, but vapid and irritatingly superficial.
And the psychological cost is instant. They are completely isolated. When they run back to the house, starving for lunch, Martha, the usually familiar servant, fails entirely to recognize these radiant yet foreign creatures.
She slams the door in their faces. She calls Robert a nasty little Italian monkey and firmly locks them out of their own home.
They go from being privileged children to being frightened, starving, foreign vagrants, just sitting under a hedge, desperately waiting for the sun to set.
And their greatest fear at this moment is that the ancient law might still apply.
That they might actually turn to stone before twilight.
They realize that superficial beauty devoid of personal identity or recognition is a poor comfort when you are as hungry as a hunter and as thirsty as a sponge.
It teaches them that being seen and known is far more valuable than being merely admired. The terror only lifts when they revert back to their normal messy selves, which Martha instantly recognizes and, of course, scolds.
So the next day brings wish 2, wealth, millions in gold.
And this wish perfectly illustrates Nesbit's subtle critique of modern financial systems, maybe informed by her socialist leanings in the Fabian Society.
It could be. The children ask for wealth, and the Psammead just fills the gravel pit with shiny guineas.
And they quickly discover that the universal law they knew, that money is hard to get and easy to spend, has been turned on its head.
The gold was easy to get, and spending it was not only hard, it was almost impossible.
The sheer inconvenience of raw gold is overwhelming. It's heavy, it's dirty, and nobody wants it.
When they try to spend it in Rochester, the tradespeople immediately dismiss the coins as foreign money, assuming these dirty, disorganized children stole the guineas from some foreign hoard.
They can't even buy basic necessities, let alone toys or nice gloves.
So the wish for unlimited wealth only leads to acute hunger and a sense of desperation. They are reduced to criminals. They march into Mr. Beale's pastry shop, and under a highly organized plan of campaign, they seize 3 buns each and run out, terrified of being caught.
It's a marvelous little nugget of analysis. Nesbit shows that in a modern, complex society, wealth isn't about having a pile of shiny metal. It's about systems, trust, currency, accepted norms.
Raw, disorganized gold is useless, but even amidst this low point, they demonstrate their essential decency.
Yes, Cynthia.
Anthea feels this crushing guilt about the theft, and later she secretly mails 12 stamps to Mr. Beale, Baker, Rochester, with a note to pay for the buns.
The moral anxiety of theft completely outweighed the momentary benefit of the food.
Absolutely.
Moving on, we reach the famous and highly chaotic Lamb is Wanted wish.
Oh, this one. Robert, annoyed that his younger brother, the lamb, has just ruined his ginger beer, wishes impulsively that everyone would want the child. He's just hoping to gain some peace and quiet.
The consequence is immediate, overwhelming, and terrifying. The lamb becomes irresistibly desirable.
He has to be rescued all day long from overly affectionate strangers, including Lady Chittenden, who is normally described as a severe, child-hating socialite.
She becomes maniacally obsessed with taking him.
But the peak of the danger is the rotten gypsy business, where a band of gypsies, convinced this child is the most precious thing in the world, attempt to physically heap him, leading to this frantic, stressful pursuit across the countryside.
The children learn that the wish only served to put their brother in mortal danger.
And what they realize at the end of the day is so critical. They only truly valued the lamb when the threat of losing him was imminent.
Cyril, the rationalist, he's the one who finally articulates the lesson.
He says, "The wish didn't do anything to us. We always wanted him with all our hearts when we were our proper selves, only we were all pigs this morning."
So the magic didn't grant a new desire. It forced them into a painful realization of their existing, usually unexpressed, love. The wish was a test, and they passed only after nearly failing.
It's a hard lesson.
Finally, let's look at the wish for wings. This is arguably the most fun and also the most deeply ironic failure.
It's a great chapter.
Anthea, the most nurturing and often responsible sister, wishes they all had beautiful, iridescent, rainbow-colored wings.
And the moral quandary is immediately funny. Cyril maintains that stealing plums from a farmer is still stealing.
But Jane, always the opportunist, argues that if you have wings, you're officially a bird, and no one minds birds breaking the commandments.
A perfect piece of child logic. They rationalize their theft by adopting a new, temporary identity.
And the theft itself is a comical failure. They escape the furious farmer's dog by flying, but they end up trapped on a narrow ledge of a church tower, realizing they have no idea how to land safely or get down without being seen.
So they're forced to rely on the most mundane figure possible, the vicar for rescue.
And the vicar, seeing these 4 children stuck on the belfry ledge, assumes the worst possible interpretation, that they are lunatics who have been stealing parts of the church mechanism.
Robert, in his desperation, ends up screaming the truth of their predicament to the vicar below. "We were very hungry, and we didn't take the custard or jam. We only took bread and meat and water, and we couldn't help its being the soda kind, just the necessaries of life."
It's the sheer absurdity of using complex magic to achieve something as simple as a snack, only to end up trapped in a dangerous public spot relying on adult authority for rescue.
Yet the wings did save them from the dog.
True. So the lesson is duality. There's nothing like wings for getting you into trouble, but also nothing like wings for getting you out of it.
And the theme is just crystallized across all these chapters. The children end every day, no freighter. The Psammead's chaotic, instantaneous magic is a zero-sum game, revealing only that their ordinary life, free from the stress of managing a volatile supernatural force, is preferable.
So 5 children, and it is this detailed study in the dangers of chaotic impulse, a sort of magical id running wild. What is the Enchanted Castle exploring?
A different kind of magic.
If the Psammead is a grumpy genie, what does the castle and its magic ring represent?
That's the critical transition. The Enchanted Castle operates on a totally different register. The magic here is inherent to the place. It suggests a kind of genius loci, the protective spirit of the locale, rather than a transactional external creature.
So it's not a wish-granting machine.
No. The magic ring, which they discover, is less about instant physical transformation and more about altering perception, experience, and identity.
Okay, let's detail the ring's specific powers, because they feel much more subtle than a wish for a pterodactyl.
They are, indeed. The ring grants invisibility, but that's just the start. It actively suppresses fear in the wearer, which is a key psychological mechanism.
That's important.
It is. It also creates indifference in friends and relatives, a subtle but important power. People aren't deliberately hostile, they simply don't register you when you wear it. And crucially, it allows the wearer to apprehend a higher, if still enigmatic, dimension of enchantment.
We see immediately that this magic is sticky and inconvenient. Mabel, the housekeeper's niece, who initially tricks them by pretending to be a princess.
Right. She wears the ring and becomes permanently invisible, and she cannot remove it.
Mabel's reaction is immediate terror. That moment when she realizes the fun is over and she's just an invisible, permanent inconvenience. She has no identity. She can't be seen or heard by normal means. It's terrifying.
It highlights how quickly fun magic can become a nightmarish reality. The Psammead's magic vanishes at sunset. The ring's magic is structural. It persists.
And what does Gerald, the pragmatist of the group, do?
He monetizes her terror, of course.
Naturally.
Gerald, always looking for a practical angle, immediately exploits Mabel's invisibility. He takes her to the local fair and conducts a conjuring act. The invisible Mabel makes items like pennies vanish and reappear in a way that just astounds the crowd.
So the woman running the sideshow is thrilled, and the audience pays handsomely.
It shows the application of profound magic in the mundane capitalist world. Nesbit subtly suggests that no matter how powerful the magic, human ingenuity will find a way to make it profitable, even if the user is simultaneously miserable.
However, the ring also facilitates glimpses into a kind of magic far beyond these parlor tricks.
It does. In a crucial moment, Gerald wears the ring and enters the ancient Yalding Gardens at night. The suppression of fear, combined with the ring's power, allows him to experience a sense that he is in another world.
He sees the classical statues of gods, goddesses, and even giant dinosaurs, like the ones from the Megatherium era, awaken into life.
And move through the moonlit landscape. This vision is ephemeral, it lasts only a moment, but it's the first hint that the castle holds a deeper, living magic, one that transcends the transactional, self-serving wishes of the Psammead's world.
So that vision of living marvel, it anticipates the profound, almost spiritual climax of the novel.
It does. But first we get the great collision point in the Enchanted Castle, the disastrous wish that blends the two worlds, the theatrical efforts of the mundane children and the uncontrollable power of real magic.
This is the incident of the Ugly Wugglies.
The Ugly Wugglies. The children are attempting to put on this grand theatrical performance of Beauty and the Beast, but they feel their audience is insufficient. So they decide to create a set of grotesque figures, the Ugly Wugglies out of sticks, broom handles, pillows, and paper masks, hoping to swell the crowd.
And Mabel, fueled by theatrical excitement and completely forgetting the lessons of the Psammead, wishes, while wearing the ring, that these stick and pillow creatures were truly alive.
And the wish is immediately granted. The transformation is horrifyingly specific. These stick figures turn into horribly short but respectable people due to their stiff broomstick limbs and pillow-stuffed bodies.
Nesbit describes them as being stiff, thick, and making a rustling, stumping sound as they walk. They have paper masks for faces contorted with these furious, lamp-black frowns.
One of the creatures instantly transforms into Mr. U.W. Ugly, a stock and share broker, complete with an unnatural paper face. Another becomes a sporting man.
The children, realizing they've created this troupe of terrifying, malevolent, and fundamentally repulsive beings, panic and have to trap them in the Temple of Flora with the help of the bailiff.
And this is just vintage Nesbit satire. You wish for something grotesque to be alive, and it instantly adopts the most prosaic and greedy of modern roles. A stockbroker.
The real moment of satire comes later, though. It shows how magic is instantly corrupted by human systems. Gerald travels to London to try and find a solution to the invisible Mabel problem.
And he locates Mr. Ugly's office, the newly real stock and share broker. Gerald runs into the adult version of his own brother, Jimmy, who had wished himself rich earlier using the ring.
The irony is just so rich, Mr. Ugly, the pillman turned stockbroker, is entirely integrated into the world of finance.
He admits the castle's magic is real enough, but instantly plans to double-cross Jimmy to get the ring. He intends to drop it near his office boy so the boy can pick it up and thus receive the next round of wishes.
Ugly's immediate calculating greed shows that even when granted life through profound magic, human nature, or in this case, the nature of modern finance, quickly subordinates that magic to petty business schemes and manipulation. The Ugly Woogly, despite his origins, is now a perfect manipulator.
But this chaos sets the stage for the true redemptive magic to emerge.
Okay, so how does that happen?
We learn that the seemingly ordinary man who helped them imprison the Ugly Wooglies, the estate bailiff, is in fact the impoverished Lord Yalding.
Well, of course.
And he is secretly in love with the governess, Mademoiselle, but his wealthy relatives have deprived him of control over the estate because they fiercely oppose their marriage due to Mademoiselle's status.
The castle itself, then, is revealed not as a random magical site, but as a monument to history and devotion.
Precisely. The castle and its beautiful gardens were built centuries ago by Lord Yalding's ancestor, who also possessed the ring. He built it to mirror the palace of his own lady love. This establishes that the magic of the ring is intrinsically tied to lasting structural devotion, not fleeting desire or financial gain.
And the ultimate redemption and selfless use of the ring's power occur in the final act. Lord Yalding places the ring on Mademoiselle's finger in a ceremony at the Temple of Flora. She doesn't ask for wealth or beauty or convenience.
No, she uses the last surge of the ring's power, wishing that all the previous structural magic wrought by the ring may be undone.
And that the ring itself may become no more and no less than a charm to bind thee and me together forevermore.
And this simple, powerful wish of commitment overcomes all the external obstacles, the family opposition, the financial ruin to their marriage.
It's the ultimate thematic pivot. The children learn that the greatest enchantment isn't a disappearing trick or a pile of gold, but the powerful enchantment of the real world, achieved through mature, selfless love.
And that transition from the chaos of the Psammead's physical alterations to the psychological and spiritual depth of the ring's power, it culminates in the profound experience of the living marble.
Right. After Mabel's terrifying invisibility, Kathleen is desperate to truly understand the nature of the castle's magic, so she puts on the ring and is transformed.
This experience is not treated as a mere magical transformation. It's an epiphany. It's almost a religious conversion.
Kathleen and Mabel, later joined by the boys, becomes statues of living marble. They join a moonlit festival of classical figures, Phoebus Apollo, Hermes, Aphrodite Urania, Hebe moving through the Yalding Gardens and the swimming lake.
The description of the state of being marble is just extraordinary in its sensory detail. Nesbit tells us that inside the marble, it is soft, warm, and safe. There is no fear.
Which is critical, as the ring suppresses fear.
It is. It's a state of total peace and serenity. They realize they are impervious to the normal irritations of life.
When they go to swim in the lake, they find that the water lilies, which are normally tricky and sticky, don't interfere with their marble arms and legs. They swim effortlessly. Their marble clothes don't impede them.
It is a state of perfect, weightless existence.
And they're invited to join the Feast of the Gods on the island. They eat celestial food served on gold cups and dishes plucked from the branches of ash trees and young oaks.
And the food is described not merely as delicious, but as having a sweet wonder and being the only realness. This emphasizes that the material world they left behind is illusory compared to this profound state of peace and understanding.
What stands out most profoundly, though, is the intellectual and emotional clarity they gain. When they listen to Phoebus play, they forget time and space entirely.
Reaching a state where all things are understood without speech, this is the pinnacle of the castle's magic. Total understanding, a momentary glimpse into the universe's operating manual.
So this is Nesbit's clearest statement on true enchantment. It's not about changing the world around you to fit your selfish needs.
No, it's about altering your internal perception to achieve peace and perfect comprehension. Nesbit notes that people who remember even this much are never quite the same again.
It changes their fundamental framework for reality. The world of living marble is where fear and petty want cease to exist.
And the experience ends with the return to the mundane world. At dawn, the marble slips away from them like a skin that shrivels in fire.
They find themselves cold and shivering in the damp brambles and coarse grass, flesh and blood once more, but profoundly altered by their internal experience.
And the novel confirms the structural permanence of Mademoiselle's selfless wish. She wakes holding a plain gold ring stripped of all its magical, manipulative power.
So the magic of the ring has been transformed into a purely human, enduring symbol of commitment.
Exactly. And furthermore, many of the secret passages and statues, the structural enchantments built by Lord Yalding's ancestor, are now permanently gone, demonstrating that even historical grand magic can be constructively undone by an act of profound, personal, and self-sacrificing love.
So if we synthesize this entire deep dive, the Psammead's chaos, the children's repeated failures with gold and beauty, the ugly wugglies, the marble sleep, the final romantic resolution, we are left with two completely competing philosophies of power in Nesbit's world.
We are. Nesbit shows us systematically that casual, selfish wishes, the transactional magic of the Psammead, bring only temporary chaos, inconvenience, and usually a pitiful, forced self-realization of their own desires.
Like when they realized they wanted the lamb all along.
Exactly. This type of magic is about external change leading to internal recognition.
Conversely, the deeper inherent magic of the ring and the castle, a magic tied to ancient structure and enduring emotion, is ultimately used for lasting, selfless love and reconciliation.
Mademoiselle's decision to sacrifice the ring's power to ensure her bond with Lord Yalding is the perfect thematic counterpoint to the children's initial wish for 1,000,000 guineas.
So the enduring lesson Nesbit imparted to her young middle-class readers at the dawn of the modern age isn't simply be good.
No, it's that true power, true progress, lies not in unlimited resources, but in critical thinking, perspective, and planning. The children's initial problem was never a lack of opportunity. They had boundless opportunity. Their failure was a lack of perspective and planning. They lacked wisdom.
Which brings us back to the Psammead's absolute refusal to help them manage the power. I've spent the whole of my waking hours in giving, but one thing I won't give, that's advice.
And that refusal of guidance, that vacuum of wisdom, is what doomed their fantastic opportunity to failure. Nesbit showed that magic is merely an amplifier. It reveals character, it doesn't build it.
If you lack the judgment and perspective to ask for something truly meaningful or beneficial.
Magic will only accelerate your own chaos, and you will end the day no forwarder, exactly where you started, only hungrier.
Now that brings us to our final thought for you, the listener, to mull over long after this deep dive is complete. Nesbit's lesson about the absolute denial of counsel is brutal but profound. The Psammead grants all desires, but offers no guidance. If you are suddenly granted a magical power that could give you anything you asked for, but the giver was philosophically bound never to offer you counsel or advice on how to use it, what single preparation would you make, or what single rule would you impose on yourself before you activated that power for the very first time? Think about that preparation, because Nesbit's children learned the hard way that an instantaneous, thoughtless wish is often just a delayed, costly regret.